Let's talk to Carpe Diem in Colorado.
Oh, hello, guys. My first time calling sexuality.
Hello, welcome.
Hey, appreciate hearing from you. What was on your mind tonight?
So I just wanted to get some clarification. So first, would you describe this like, how the sexual orientation is something that you are, it's not a choice, right? Would you place this more of like a sexual preference, a kind of kink or a kind of behavior that you learn or something that you can explore, or more something that kind of happens to you and you just kind of discover that you have that preference and is more like something that's, I'm trying to say, like nature versus nurture. I don't know exactly what the flavor of the question is, but I just want to know if the theme of today is more of a choice or not choice kind of into thing.
I have to say it's both. Puck, I'm curious what you would say, but your temperament and your identity are definitely pieces of all of this. I don't know that anybody or just anybody could get into it, but I think that's also true about baseball and horror movies and like any other form of kink. So while yes, I do think that this is not something that absolutely anybody is going to perhaps get into. It really is for me, or at least in my mind, a learned behavior, if we want to frame it that way. I mean, the types of things that you're looking for, the types of things that you're needing, those are going to be specific to you, and they're going to be caused by a million different factors. So I don't know that I'd be super comfortable saying that it's a choice or not a choice, more so than really any other human behavior. Puck, what do you think? Where am I wrong here?
No, I was going to punt to you anyway, because I don't know how to draw the fine differentiations between a fetish and a kink and an interest and where exactly these boundaries are. Like,
and every time somebody does, somebody else comes and stands next to him and says, "Nah, you drew the line in the wrong spot." And they're squishy words, and that's okay with me.
Yeah, like for me, I can tell you that I did not start out with this. I have that kind of personality where I tend to step in and start to take charge a little bit anyway. But then it's learning how to temper that with my environment, like whether I'm the new guy at work, and even though I want to step in and take charge and start moving cups everywhere, no, my job is to maintain the kitchen the way they want to maintain the kitchen. So learning how to be a dom is the same way. It's like, yeah, I can see, it's like, I see the kind of relationship you want. I want to help you have that. And, I want to be the one that leads you in that. You might have that natural tendency to want to be on the lead side of that, but there's still a lot of learning that needs to happen in there. One does not become a good caregiver dom overnight. You're going to screw up just as much as a dom as little as any other kind of relationship. So I can kind of see where there's part of it that it's a natural tendency, like to want to lead or to want to go with the flow or whatever. But then there's still that learning aspect of it where you learn where your personality fits in with other relationships. And just because it fits in a certain place in one relationship doesn't mean that your next relationship, you're going to have that same role. Okay. So I don't know if that answers the question, because I can't really say where a preference starts and a kink begins. I really don't know the answer.
Sure.
Can I try to phrase what I would like to call it and see if you guys agree with it? I would think it's like a kind of relationship dynamic that you are attracted to because of certain things that you either gone through or have about you, that because you're born with or you developed through all your experiences that make you attracted to that kind of thing. Would that be a fair description?
With a slight pushback that there are some relationship dynamics I find interesting only as I find out what they actually are. Like,
Interesting.
What's the best way to describe this? Like, I don't think you have to have gone through a prior experience, like a long time ago in your development, for it to develop into a different kind of relationship. Like, one kind of relationship, I didn't even know this existed until about 5 years ago. It's called feederism, where you take very, very strong control over someone else's diet, whether it's like directly feeding them or measuring out their portions so that they're only allowed to eat. I never even heard of this. Now, the relationship doesn't resonate with me personally, but there are so many different kinds of relationship dynamics out there and so many different ways that two people interact. There's no possible way we could come up with all of it before someone gets to a certain developmental point. So I would have a slight pushback on the idea that it's something that happened in the past that leads me to want a certain kind of relationship, just because in my personal experience, I didn't even know these kind of relationships were possible. Then when it happened, when the situation was there, it's like, yeah, I can work with this.
Yeah, I might compare it in that way to
something about. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't mean to talk over you there. Sure. Well, I'll say that I find this question really, really fascinating, and it's somewhat similar to one that has nagged me for years about polyamory. Is polyamory a lifestyle choice? Is it a orientation? Is it, I mean, how do we describe it? And I have asked that question of practically every person who has been on this show who has any connection to that subject. I've certainly talked to folks like David Lay and Dedeker Winston and Dr. Ray and all of these people that are experts on polyamory. And every single one of them has given me a different answer. And I could honestly spend the rest of this night just going on and on about all of my thoughts on the subject. But I don't know that there really is an answer. And I think it might be because in some ways, it's something of a flawed question. I am so fascinated by the answers that it generates, and I really appreciate you raising it. But I also think that it starts from this assumption that human beings can be categorized. And I don't mean to be like careless or flippant about that.
No.
That yeah, when people call and ask like, well, okay, if there's more than two genders, how many are there? I get a lot of pushback, and I'm not trying to be flippant about it, but I sincerely believe that there are something like 7.5 billion genders, because even if we can start to like broadly categorize people, they are still individuals and they each have a different expression of gender. And I think that ends up being true of our orientations, the way we recognize sexuality as being on a spectrum. And there's a bit of that mixed into all of this too. So is it a lifestyle choice? Is it something that you need? I've certainly talked to poly folks who say that they were born poly, they will always be poly, and they were miserable when they were trying to pretend otherwise. And I've heard from people who have said the exact opposite. I couldn't say what's right for anybody or what box we should necessarily put that in. But I would say that a lot of the like more nuanced mechanics of this kind of thing, getting away from like the caregiver little dynamic and into the particular outfits or like the particular kink or the role play that we put on it, that stuff to me is window dressing. The dynamic underneath, that's something a little bit more primal, and I couldn't say exactly where it comes from.
So I just want to say, like, for Puck, that I also said I didn't say that it was necessarily something that happened to you. It could be also something that you just are like that way for natural reasons or whatever. But I love what you said, Christy, and I just want to say that also I have the same fascination with poly myself. So when you get an answer, please let us know on the show. And what you said, maybe there is no answer. But I also want to say, is there something? Okay, so if it is something that I can learn, right? Is there something that I need to some things that I need to avoid for or watch out for, or something that is like not obvious that I can do wrong if I'm trying to get into it and kind of like make a full pass on the, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think these are really great questions. Yeah, no, I think these are great questions. And because we are getting close to the end of the show, if you don't mind, I'm going to actually go ahead and let you go just so that we can kind of wrap up as we talk about those exact ideas, because that's certainly what I wanted to do to wrap us up tonight, is to better understand how people might explore these things for themselves. So, Puck, if you're game, let's say good night to Carpe Diem, and thank you so much for calling.
It's good to hear from you, Carpe. Thank you.